Well, Nakamura, my name is Sage Blake. I'm a wanderer, storyteller, artist and mature, and I'm starting to think that this episode is cursed. Not because of the limerick here, which, nice touch, but because this is effectively the third time that I've had to record this. The first time, I spent a good hour and a half getting footage prepared for it, and I would have thought that I did pretty well with it. The only problem is, I had a mental hiccup. See, I thought that the recording for OBS wasn't saving, so I had essentially written it off the recording as being a dud. As it turns out, I ended up saving the audio and the video in different places than I usually did, and because I'd written it off, I deleted one and essentially made the other obsolete. And the second time around, I spent about 50 minutes doing that recording. And it was really good. I had a whole set of jokes ready. I edited it together, had the episode ready. And then, well, to date the recording, last weekend, I accidentally deleted it. And also 300 GBs worth of other videos. Some of them were streams that I'd already uploaded in parts on the YouTube channel, such, okay, that's not much of a loss. Some of those were videos that I'd finished for the YouTube channel as well, and had already uploaded. The rest was this video, a few episodes of Bloodstained Randomizer, the Zangetsu playthrough, and a one-off video that I honestly wasn't all too proud of in the first place, so that can just stay in the trash. And there was no way to recover all that I deleted because it never went to the recycle bin. Thanks, Windows 10! And more importantly, thank you, keyboard. You are amazing, but the days when you stick, I absolutely hate you, and I want to die. I'm pretty sure I've had a few sessions of Genshin Impact be absolutely tabled, specifically because of this goddamn keyboard. Like, I had moments where the Alt key just stuck and refused to change, and that led to, why am I glitching? Ugh! Excuse me, Dunkehr, I understand what your name means, but I don't think you should be doing that with your free time. Getting stuck into roofs is kind of the equivalent of watching bees and not going for the hives, and instead just swicky-daying off of the next door neighbor's kid. By the way, bees die when they lose their stingers. And speaking of bees, this is Dunkehr! Part of Indie Stars. What is Indie Stars? Essentially, it's a group of developers decided to get together and promote their projects by signal boosting one another. In the previous couple of weeks, we took a look at Bun and Gun, and also shoot, wow, I feel really terrible, I forgot. Brock Croc, that was it, sorry. It's been a long couple of weeks, I'll just say that much. Because, again, I have to re-record a whole bunch of footage now, and I hate doing that. I just wish some days that I could just get everything right the first time through, and be proud of what I've done. But, unfortunately, I have that mind of a perfectionist some days, and get absolutely demoralized when things don't go my way. That doesn't happen all the time, but it happens enough that it just ruins me for a good couple days at a time. At minimum. But more importantly, Dunkehr. This game is described, at least by the developer last year, as being furry Dark Souls. I disagree with that, but it's more on the fact that I have a different definition of Dark Souls. Or, at that, Souls-like type games. This game can be difficult. I'll give it credit where it's due. And it can be complex in terms of the abilities that you can perform, their usefulness, and just precisely what you need to do and how many situations you need to do it in. It can feel like a Souls-like game. It's not. It's just a hard platformer that you could probably classify as beat 'em up. And you son of a... This Archer, man! I have so many qualms with this Archer. Like, so many times, in the past recordings, it's come down to, I'm going to tether onto this ledge. Archer, oh hey, I see you. Get off. And I'm like, no, I don't want to get off. I want to hold this ledge. I want to hold it a long time. I want to hug it. I want to kiss it. I want to marry it. And unfortunately, I can't do that. It's a ledge, not a person, me. You might want to pick a different waifu. Ow! Dunkehr, by its complexity... What? Dunkehr is a game where the complexity comes from your move pool and how you assess situations. You've got a light attack and a heavy attack, each with their own benefits and flaws. The light attack can come out a lot faster, more often than not, and usually is much more spammable and easier to chain. But its damage output is kinda meh. Alternatively, you've got heavy attack, which can't be spammed anywhere near as much, but it usually is more powerful, helps away enemies. And I also love an input. Way to go. More often than not, one of the safe ways you can deal with enemies is to hit them with a light and then immediately a heavy. Or a series of lights and then push them away with a heavy. Up to you. Regardless, if you can knock an enemy away into another enemy, then you can deal more damage to the both of them. Collision, physics, that type of thing. Though don't think that your spear is the only thing that's usable within Dunkehr. You've also got a roll. During the first fifth of a second, yeah, the game actually specifically says that, how? You gain invincibility. If you're quick with your button presses, you could also perform a long jump, which has a lot less control than your standard jump. But at the same rate, you could also travel a lot further and be able to perform different specific attacks with your light and heavy buttons. With the light attack, you'll see me perform this crescent moon swing, so to speak, which deals decent damage and pretty usable. If I use the heavy attack, however, I perform an attack that can pierce guard and deal a whole lot of damage to whatever I collide with. Here's the thing, though. Once you do it, you are stuck doing it. You're going to skid into the floor, and you won't be able to input any buttons until the animation resets. So it comes at a trade-off. If you aren't going to be killing with the heavy dash attack, don't use it. Oh, yes! Those scales wanted to party, but they needed a bit of help getting to the dance floor. You know how much I love helping others. Now, Dunkehr, we just happen to be doing the same job on opposite sides of this whole ordeal. But since I'm feeling generous today, why don't I help you out as well? Your words are enough to get my side split. I take it you've been asked to get to the Duke's kid. You know the old citadel the scales are settled in after the canyon. They're keeping her in the nicest room that bundle of old rocks has to offer. Now, I should be going. Someone has to report this whole affair to them. You know how it is. My, you should watch your language. We have children nearby. Most of them should be dead now, but we can't be too careful, can we? Don't hire me for your voice acting. In all honesty, I wouldn't be opposed to it. You might have noticed during the stage that I was picking up what looked to be spicy honeycombs, or at least I think they're spicy honeycombs. Those items have their own specific draws to them. By picking them up, you gain a permanent increase to your maximum fury. Your fury increases as you deal more damage to enemies, and generally it boosts the amount of damage you can deal to them. This is important, specifically because of the nightmare difficulty. What we were just playing on was hard, and you might have noticed that I wasn't really struggling with it. That's mostly because I have like 2.5 hours under my belt now, because of fucking recordings, but hey. Nightmare turns everything on its head. Because, you know that health bar of mine that was at like 250? Where did it go? Where did it go? Where did it go? Most likely when the developer was mentioning that this is furry Dark Souls, they might have been referring to nightmare difficulty as opposed to the standard difficulty, or hard mode even. Because having 1 HP drastically changes how you approach situations. You need to be a lot more careful. You can kind of see why I had an 1.5 hour recording of this. Well, this is for the first round, and that is because I like hard games, and this is actually kind of enjoyable for me. But yeah, I didn't get around to mentioning the Fury. On Nightmare difficulty, your trade-off is, sure, you're going to be taking ridiculous amounts of damage, and by ridiculous amounts of damage, I mean it's pretty much death in a single hit. Your Fury is automatically set to close to max, making it making it a little bit easier to take down enemies along the way. And for record, a little bit past this section right here is the furthest I've gotten. And... ah! But yeah, because of the fact that you have only 1 HP, a lot of the strategies that you might have been used to using for normal and hard mode are completely worthless. Instead, you need to adopt a new set of strategies, which are don't get hit ever. Fortunately, you do have things to help you do that. You have the dodge roll, as I mentioned, but there's also a parry system. If you hit an attack button at just about the same time that you were about to get hit, you'll parry the attack and take no damage, and if they're a melee enemy, you'll stun them. This makes it easier for you to take them out, deal more damage, and keep the party going. But of course, staggering an enemy like that is very timing specific. If you're too early or too late, you're going to get hit, and there's nothing you can do about it except cry and wish you decide never to parry. Yeah. You've also got a fairly wide moveset in terms of Dunkehr's arsenal. One of the ways that I've found works for getting through this is to use the punt. By hitting the roll and then the light attack directly afterward, well, within a specific window, you'll be able to kick. And for whatever reason, I can't show it off here. What? The punt acts as a heavy attack would, only it's a little more short range. It launches enemies that it hits, and deals... It's also useful for breaking guard. Use it against shield enemies, and they become sitting ducks. Well, not exactly sitting ducks, you still need to chain them, but... comparatively, that's not much of an issue. There's also a heavy variant called Batter Up. It sends enemies absolutely flying, but in exchange, it has a bit of a wind-up, making it not exactly the best move to use in many situations. If you can get away with it, it's really fun, but not exactly the best thing to use. Try! With the heavy attack, you also get a sweep kick, which is, again, fairly short-ranged and ground-based, but pops enemies into the air, making it easier for you to attack them. And you also gain access to a couple of feral attacks, if I remember that's what they're called. Actually, there's a command list that you can look up so you can take a look at things yourself. Primal moves, sorry. Rapid Skewer, you might have seen me do a few times because the button input is surprisingly simple to do. It's just both attack buttons within close proximity of one another, or even both attack buttons simultaneously. It allows you to attack 7 times. It's the equivalent of light attacks each and every time. So be careful with shielded enemies. Make sure that you hit them first in order to open them up, and then lead into the primal attack. The 7th attack, if I remember correctly, also has knockback, so it's a useful combo finisher if you can get it off. The last primal art that you can perform is a technique called None Given. Let's see, remind myself, yeah. So hold down and hit both attack buttons, and Dunkehr will gain super armor. While he's in this armored state, no attack that he receives will force him into a knocked state. However, he can still suffer damage. On the Nightmare difficulty, where you only have 1 HP, it's kinda worthless, but it can give you some practicalities on the lower difficulties, just so you can essentially spam through a boss, or group of enemies. Compared to last year's demo, this 2020 version of Dunkehr is, by and large, the superior product. The music is better, there are more animations and graphics to look at that are absolutely gorgeous. I like pixel art, I'm sorry. Dunkehr has a much wider move pool. And there are a whole bunch of other tweaks here and there, up to and including the fact that this is a completely different stage because, well, this was... If I remember correctly, this is actually... What? I didn't mean to use None Given there, but... This stage is actually the proper intro stage. What we saw last year with that version of Dunkehr was just something thrown together to test things out. Hell, even the boss was technically something to just test things out with. Well, there is one more thing in the arsenal that I do need to mention, and in order to use it, you need to have at least 1 bar of rage in the lower left corner. Rage slowly builds over time as you travel, and otherwise builds faster when you attack enemies. If you have at least 1 bar of rage, you can perform a slightly tricky input. It's like roll down jump after you perform an attack. This allows you to essentially cancel into another technique. It's really finicky to get down, but if you can get it down, then you can feasibly deal a lot of damage to enemies really quickly. I'm not good at it. I'm not going to attempt to get good at it, because it's kind of an awkward button input, and honestly, provided I'm being careful, I feel like that's going to be more effective in the long run than simple cancels. For my playstyle, at least. I'm a bit of a outboxer. I usually prefer to keep my enemies as far away from me as possible, and poke at them from safe reach. Unfortunately, this does lead to me getting into some dicey situations, all because I get a little careless. Or a little too focused on keeping my enemy at a distance. There is an active item system that you can use in the game on hard mode and lesser difficulties. This honeycomb is actually an instance of that. It's a usable item that after you pick it up, can be spent with the pause menu in order to recover half of your HP immediately. It can be very useful. Of course, it doesn't exactly matter on Nightmare difficulty, but any little perk that helps players get through challenges a little more easily is always useful. Good. Oh! Try again next week. Preferably after you've gotten some practice with that spear. It's not a run and dash weapon that you can just use whenever you feel like it. It's much more nuanced and precise. Of course, I say that, and my modus operandi is literally hit it till it dies. Okay, I take that back. That was actually kind of effective. There's only one stage in the demo, sure, and it's 4 difficulties. Good luck with Nightmare, by the way. But there is technically a little more in the form of duel mode. You likely saw this in last year's demo as well, but this time it's much more fleshed out. You can fight not just another player, but also CPU opponents. And we also gain access to a second character here as well, Konyu. Yes, that's the canon pronunciation. Why? Because this developer likes puns. I mean, have you seen Honey Badger Dunkehr? Konyu has a much more acrobatic, let's call it, moveset. Her front slice attack can be absolutely spammed indefinitely, while Dunkehr's actually stops after the 4th and has to recharge. She can also block attacks, reducing the damage she takes to 1. By blocking an attack, it essentially makes it a little easier for you to counterattack, open the enemy up, and throw your absolute best at them. She's got an upward slice, a stomp, and she can also shield slide. If you hold down the roll button and I believe down on the control pad, then you can actually slide on your shield, allowing you to get past the spikes, and also travel a whole lot faster. There are a couple of techniques that you can only perform while shield sliding, so keep that in mind. You can also perform a shield bash by tapping R while you're blocking something. It stuns the enemy and opens them up, makes it easier for you to attack them, but by itself it does no damage. It's literally just pimp slapping them. On the heavy end, we have Leap Slice, which actually catapults you forward a little bit before you stop and then slash. Upper Bumper, Upward Launch, Uppercutter, which can deal 2 hits, Bash Slash, and for primal moves, we have Winning Spin, which can only be performed during a shield slide, and Door Slam Special, which I'll use more often than not. The first hit stuns the enemy and makes it easier for you to deal more damage to them. All characters can also perform a repel by hitting down and R whenever they get hit. It stuns enemies nearby and makes it easier for you to retaliate, but it also spends your meter. But more importantly... Okay, for record, the last time I did this, I had an absolutely miserable time fighting Dunkehr with Konyu. But then again, it's mostly because of the strategies that the two of them have. With Dunkehr, if you aren't using careful, calculated, precise attacks, then you're completely vulnerable and easy to take out. But on the same right, if Konyu isn't in your face and absolutely giving you hell, she's also not doing her job correctly. Ow. Ow. Come on. This is what I get for trying to do the slow and careful approach. That's what I'm talking about. You've already seen how Konyu can feasibly approach the other two characters. It's a matter of essentially having her close the distance. If she can't close the distance, then that's it. But what if we were to fight Konyu with Dunkehr? How would that be a little different? Well, with Dunkehr, it's more of a keep away strategy. If you aren't doing outboxer tactics like I was before, then he's going to absolutely struggle. Whew! Absolute clean stomp. Perfect. That was even a perfect performance. Well, this is awkward. Someone decided to bring their body double to the duel. Don't worry, it's time to see which shadow is less hedgehog, more angst. As it turns out, with Dunkehr, the same tactics can still be applied. A moderately high aggressive strategy with some reliance on outboxing. Very useful. Ooh! That's what you get for coming into range of my spear. Considering where the enemy was and what I was using, could we effectively rename them to Shishka Bob?
No.
If at any point you find yourself struggling with how to use a character, like, say, for example, Dunkehr, maybe it might be in your best interest to watch a few CPU matches just to see how the CPU uses the characters, and then see if you can't adapt some of those strategies yourself later on. Who knows? Maybe it'll be useful. Maybe you can learn some techniques from, watching Dunkehr spam the heavy attack over and over again. What type of strategy is this? I mean, it's practically what the average Smash player uses. Eventually, provided you hit forward and attack enough times, one of these Smash attacks is going to hit its mark. Well, technically you're not wrong, but it's not exactly the right decision either. But then again, I think you get the point of what I'm trying to say. But with all things settled, I think it's about time I return to the Void. Then again, palakit na. You know, there were a couple things I didn't exactly examine when I was recording before. Those include a couple of references. I think I should show them off. There are a few different conversations that Dunkehr can have involving this sundial here. Mostly punnery right after time. And there's this one where he actually impales someone at the end of this thing. Well, that's how you use a sundial, I guess. At some point, it's just time for someone to die. At that, you could also find a statue in town after this particular siege point. And yes, you can examine it. Adults beware. Kids beware. Tasteful. At that, if you're especially quick in this particular section, let's see if I can't... There we go. You can actually technically glitch forward a little bit. There's no real practicality to it, especially since it's more often going to just screw you over than it is going to help you. Because some of the enemies will be forced to spawn on the left side here, and there's not much you can do about them. Actually, you might be able to recover this. Let's see here. Nope, nope, you can't recover it. Damn. Okay. Okay, that's actually kind of funny. enough with me being unbearable. Let's watch the CPUs be unbearable, because honestly, sometimes it could be fun just watching the computer play. No! No! Because sometimes it can be absolutely hilarious watching a computer play with itself. I can't say that with a straight face! I can't say that with a straight face! Oh my god, I can't believe I just thought of that.